Hello, everyone. This is Tanishqa with the Student Success Secrets, and today we have Emily, who is attending UC Santa Cruz and will be sharing her journey with us. Emily, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily. I go to UC Santa Cruz. I'm a third year, graduated high school in 2018, I think. I used to be a computer science major, but now I'm a math major. There's different concentrations to math majors there. I haven't decided which one I'm doing yet, even though I'm like this close to graduating. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, so the main purpose of this call is for you to walk us through your high school experience each year from ninth to 12th grade in regards to what kind of student you were, what classes you took, what extracurriculars or clubs you participated in, and basically walk us through your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year.
In high school,
Yes.
um, freshman year, I vaguely remember, I think. It was very much just getting comfortable with high school. I wasn't really, you know, didn't have any friends. So I pretty much just I went in and just did my best. I was always kind of that straight A student. I didn't want to bring home bad grades to my parents. but, it kind of stayed that way for almost all of high school. Sophomore year, I got more comfortable. I was in band sophomore year. And so I made a lot of friends that way. For clubs, almost my entire high school career, I was like the president of the Smash Club, like Smash Brothers, the game. But you know, it kind of ended up falling out. Like it was kind of hard to kind of stick with clubs, especially the more difficult your classes are. So I ended up like only sticking with like band and jazz band as the main things that I dedicated my time to. Um, Junior year was definitely the hardest year for me. I think it's because I took more AP classes than usual. It's also the time you do SATs, which for my school, most of the time, most seniors, or like my high school, most seniors would be taking the SAT, but I decided to take it my junior year because I went to cram school for it that my parents really wanted me to go to. So, I mean, I did okay, but ultimately, like, I just focused more on grades. My biggest thing that I don't regret doing, so like the biggest thing I would recommend to, and I do recommend to a lot, like my brother who's also in high school, is to take the courses that you know you will pass and you will know that you'll do good in. Because I've seen a lot of people take like every AP class and they're up until 3 a.m. doing homework. They're 6 a.m. at school. It's just like it not only burns you out really quickly, but it also doesn't ensure that you'll do the best unless you know that you can. It's like don't overbook yourself to the point where you know that you can't handle it. Um, so that was kind of what I did. Like I didn't take the most AP classes. I just took the ones that I was interested in and I knew I could at least get a B in, right? Like um so yeah, senior year was easiest. I think it's because we're all kind of just getting ready to graduate, but it really depends on the school and it really depends on which classes you take and how serious those classes are. Um, what's that? It's like senioritis, I think. It really kicks in for a lot of seniors, and there have been people at my school who like just kind of give up senior year, like after they've been accepted to like their colleges, and then they get their admissions revoked. So, highly don't recommend to do that. But that's only if you're planning on going to college. So.
Sounds good. So, you mentioned you took some AP classes. Did you do well in them, and like which ones did you take?
I think for AP classes, I did well in the class. I have never passed an AP exam. Not one of my AP exams did I pass. despite getting like A's in all of the classes themselves, I find that the AP testing itself it's very stressful. It's like so much in like a short amount of time that it's like they are important though, especially at least for UC Santa Cruz. There are 3 English courses that you have to take, and if you pass either AP language or AP lit, then you don't have to take one extra class. But since I didn't pass them, I didn't take that many AP classes at the time. My high school didn't offer like that many that I was particularly interested in doing. So they do have more now. Hearing back from some of the underclassmen that I was friends with, but I took AP World History, AP Language and Composition, AP Calculus and AP Literature. I think those were the only 4 that I ever took. And then I took every honors, like honors biology, honors chemistry, and honors physics. I think those were like the only kind of like advanced classes I took. I didn't do the best in those science classes. I just don't think that was for me. But yeah, the school did offer like AP computer science, which is what I ended up applying to college for, but didn't take that either.
So, when did you know you wanted to do your major, and what led to your interest in it?
I think part of it was parental pressure. I think my parents always wanted me to be a STEM major, as well as I did take like this filming course in high school where like we did a lot of computer things, whether it was Photoshop, video production, video post production, and I was really interested in computers. And since I really didn't know what I wanted to do, I was like, why not choose computer science? Yeah, little did I know that computer science is actually very hard to get into. And unless you're very sure that you want to do it, it's very hard to get in for computer science. But because it's impacted at UC Santa Cruz, the only way you can be a computer science major is if you like are admitted as a computer science major, which is partially why I chose to be a computer science major. It's because had I found out that I didn't want to do it, which I did, I could always just change out of it. As opposed to if I went in and decided I wanted to do it, they wouldn't let me in for that. I was asked all the time in high school, like what I wanted to do, like what career path did I want to pursue, but I didn't have particular interests in anything besides art. I really love art. And I wanted to become an artist, but my parents told me I shouldn't be an artist. So I looked to the next thing after that. It was money. And I was like, yeah, computer science. They make a lot of money. I'm going to be a computer science major. And I think that was the only thing that really motivated me to choose the major, when in reality, I think if I hadn't thought in that type of way, I probably would have gone in undeclared anyway. And it wasn't until I think the middle of my second year, so the middle of my sophomore year in college, did I realize that computer science wasn't for me.
So, what made you realize that you wanted to pursue math?
I was very unhappy being a computer science major. I think it's a lot of work. I spent a lot of time coding, and the first introductory class to coding isn't very hard. So I didn't spend a lot of time coding in that one. But the one right after that is oddly intensive compared to the one prior to it. So it was pretty much like 14 hours a day, like coding, maybe a little exaggerated, maybe like 6 hours at minimum a day of just coding. And because of how much trial and error coding is, it just took a big toll on me. And I think that towards my sophomore year, it was the first quarter of my sophomore year in college, and I was in the next coding class, and it was hard. I could not keep up with my peers, and I think I felt very behind. And because I felt behind, which is very normal in college, I've learned now that there are a lot of people who feel the same way. You just don't see that. But since I just was really unhappy, I was stressed out, barely had time to eat or sleep. I couldn't do it anymore. And so I had this huge, it was maybe like 2 a.m. one night after coding an assignment. I realized that I just wanted to change out of it. And I thought about the things that I wanted to do. And since, as much as I love art, it's very hard to build a career off of art, especially in such a concentrated market like that. So I looked at the next thing that I was good at and that I liked to do, and it was math, where even in high school, I taught and worked at this tutoring center where I held like lessons for children from ages anywhere from like 5 all the way to 14. Like, I would just teach any kind of grade level. Initially, I was an English teacher, but I ended up being a math teacher there, and I really enjoyed it. And so I think after that, I decided to switch over to math because of that. But there was a complication, and it's because UC Santa Cruz requires that there's a certain amount of time that you have to declare a major. Even though you're admitted as a certain major, you're not technically that major until you fulfill the lower division requirements. And so I actually had to do some extra work just to be a part of that major, and that they wouldn't kick me out, essentially.
Yeah, so what factors were really important to you when selecting a college, and what led you to choose UC Santa Cruz?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think when it came to choosing colleges, I had a few choices that I really liked. Well, ultimately, it doesn't matter what I like if I don't get in. So I only made it into UC Santa Cruz and UC San Diego. I did not make it into San Jose State. I did not make it into Cal Poly SLO. Pretty much none of my state schools accepted me. Only UC Santa Cruz and UC San Diego did. And I'm very grateful ultimately because, a school is better than no school, at least at the time for me. That's how I thought. I think in terms of why I chose UC Santa Cruz, I think I didn't want to be too far from home. I get homesick pretty easily. However, I know a lot of my friends feel completely differently. They want to be really far away from home, and it really just depends on, what you want. And the UC Santa Cruz campus is beautiful. I adore it so much. Like, even though a hiked class every day is like mandatory, the nature there and the scenery and the animals, it's just, I wouldn't give it up for anything, really. So campus is mildly important to me because I find like happiness is really important to me. And I think that campus is just really peaceful, depending on where you go on campus. And yeah, I just really adore it. And it's not too far away from home. And I live in San Francisco. So even though it's like an hour and a half drive, it's not like 8 hours to San Diego. Though I know UC San Diego's campus is also very beautiful, but it's just a little too far for me, personally.
What has been your favorite part about attending UC Santa Cruz?
I think my favorite part has to be the friends that I made there, as well as the campus. I think for I was the only person at my high school of my graduating class that actually went to UC Santa Cruz. Most of my peers either went to different state schools or they went to UC San Diego. That one was really popular my year. A few went to UCLA. But I kind of went in knowing nobody. I didn't have anyone to hang out with for the first 5 weeks. And it was sad at first. But the campus is one of my favorite parts of being at UC Santa Cruz. So despite being lonely, it was still really peaceful for me to have the nature around me made me feel a little less lonely. And once I made friends, I think they are the best part of college for me. I love my education, but I find that socially, that's probably my favorite part, as well as the growth that you experience as a person in college. That's also very important for me.
So going back to the college admissions process, what do you think was the strongest part of your application?
Definitely my personal statements, because like I said, my SAT score was not the best. Neither were my AP scores. My testing scores are just awful. I am very bad at taking tests. Whether that's test anxiety or something else, I'm unsure. But personal statements were probably the best part of my application. I think it's because you get to elaborate about certain things about yourself that the UCs do look for. And a lot of people say they're not important, but I just disagree. Yeah, grades are also important. I think my weighted GPA was 4.02. It was 3.8 something or 9 something unweighted, which is a really good GPA. But I feel there's more to it than just the numerics. Though the grades are important, I think the strongest part was definitely the personal statements.
So in high school, how did you manage your time with the AP classes you took and all the clubs you participated in?
I've always been bad at time management. I think even in college, I struggle a lot to manage my time properly. But in high school, it is definitely, even if this may not be the answer you're expecting, but keeping my desk space pretty empty helped me a lot. And that doesn't have much to do with time management, but I found that motivation is like a high, right? So you won't always experience it. A lot of it was me just forcing myself to sit down after I ate dinner and just do the work. Because unless I force myself to do it, I probably will never feel genuine, I can't wait to do my chemistry work. I won't feel that just all the time. So I usually spent from after school to around 5-ish in the band room, whether it was practicing my instrument or with whatever club activity. I usually spent after school doing that. I would come home, eat dinner around 6 or 7, and then after that I would do my work. It was really important for me to remember the deadlines. So knowing my deadlines helped me a lot. But, I'm a procrastinator, so I will almost always wait until the day before. That's not very good advice. I don't recommend it. But in high school, I think it was just very hard for me to actually properly manage my time. Especially the more you put on your plate, the harder it is to get everything done. And since in high school, I did feel like I was doing a lot because I also did work on Saturdays. I worked 2 jobs on Saturdays, so I would not really have the weekend to always do the work. I did sometimes have to just sit down and do a large chunk of my work, whether it was on Sundays or bits and pieces of it on Sunday, and then submitting it throughout the week, prioritizing the things that were due earlier.
You said your strongest part of your application was your personal statement. What advice do you have for juniors who will be going through the writing process? And if you would like, you can talk about what you wrote for it as well.
So I don't know where my copy of my personal statements went. Don't be like me. I think I saved it to my school account at the time, and that just vanished. So I would love to share exactly what I had, but I don't recall either. I think it was an assignment for my AP literature class. So in the summer before my senior year, my AP literature teacher was like, your summer assignment is to do your personal statements. And so all of us did our personal statements. My first draft was very bad. She told me, like, she just straight up told me to just restart on some of my personal statements. And she told me that what they care about a lot is to see that there are things that are hindering you from being at your academic best, but they want to see how you overcome that. I think that growth is probably the most important thing to them. So I wrote about my struggles with taking care of my 2 little brothers. Well, one of them isn't little anymore. I do have a 7-year-old brother right now. He's 7 now. He wasn't 7 then, though. I talked about, it's probably going to get a little personal, but I talked about my eating habits. I figured it's very touchy, but they do want you to talk about things that aren't necessarily academic, that still prevent you from always being at your academic best. And they want to see how you are capable of being at your academic best by overcoming these things that aren't necessarily academic. So more like outside factors and less of just AP calculus is very hard. Math was never my subject. Like, they want more than that. They also want you to discuss like activities, whether they're in school. I don't recall if there were supposed to be like clubs or something, but they want you to talk about those, how that influences you and how it made you a better person or makes you a more well-rounded person. So that was definitely something that I wrote about. I wrote about art and how that affected me and how I use it as coping for a lot of my struggles. I also used it in leadership because we had a leadership course where we just like beautified the school. So yeah, like they also want you to talk about leadership. I was the like secretary of band, like, kind of like that band role. Also talked about like my club role as well, but leadership was the optional one. Like you get to pick which ones you want to do. So I just picked the ones that I felt like applied best to me, and different ones apply differently to other people. So.
In high school, what were some of your favorite classes you took, or some that challenged you?
My favorite class was probably AP Literature. That's because we read a lot of literature, but we did a lot of acting, and I'm a little more closed off. Like, I'm very embarrassed to do things like acting or, presentations. And so that class not only really challenged me, but it also was it pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit, but not too much. We had a lot of, like, we were reading Othello, Shakespeare, had to act scenes from that. And while it wasn't academically the most challenging, it was socially really challenging. But I look back on it fondly. Another challenging course is calculus. Like, I know I'm a math major, but calculus is hard, and it just gets harder as you go on. And if you're a computer science major, you're not off the hook either, because you have to take up to at least vector calculus, which is if you were like Calc 3 or something. But calculus was very challenging for me. And like I said, I didn't pass any AP exam. So despite always being good at math, like always excelling at that, calculus like was a run for my money. I had to go in after school some days and be like, Mr. Yamamoto, I have no idea what this is. I don't know what this means. Like quizzes in calculus was hard. The way that they prepare you for multiple choice, like I'm just not ready for it ever. So calculus is also very hard. And these were primarily my senior year courses, but AP language was also very hard. And like I said, all the science classes were hard for me, but I think it was because I'm just not the best at science. So I don't know if I have nothing to say. I have nothing to add on that. I'm just not very good at it. For AP language, it really breaks down the construction of English. And while I speak English okay, like it was not my first language. So when it comes to comprehending the composition of English, brutal.
Okay, well, we have a community that gives students a leverage in college admissions, financial success, and career aspirations called the Unfair Advantage. And so my last question is, what is one piece of advice you would give to high school students in the community?
I'd say use your resources, even if it's daunting. My parents don't speak English, so a lot of the applications, whether it was the FAFSA application, the college application, like all of it, it was always I always had to do it myself. And I think that something that was really helpful was to speak to my counselors, was to if there is a financial aid any financial aid advisor that has reached out to you or is available, I'd say like speak to them. And if not, there's Google is your best friend. Like if it's hard to figure something out, it is scary. It's scary to do everything alone and kind of have no one to really support you. And that's when you just got to pick yourself up and do it yourself sometimes. That's what I did in high school. That's what I did for my applications. Because everything down to paying tuition, to enrolling in your classes, it's very difficult and very scary. So using your resources is probably one of the best bits of advice that I have. And it's really scary if you're really closed off or like mildly introverted. And it's definitely something that I struggled with, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And in my desperation, I reached out to advisors, counselors, and they helped me, and it really was helpful. I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you. With that, you have about 30 seconds to promote on any social media you have.
Follow my art Twitter and Instagram, Emmy Berry, EMIBXRRY.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for your time, Emily. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having me.